Hi everyone, I'm going to show you how to use a Bokashi bin to process organic waste. This is particularly good for people that are in small apartments, and one of the things that's so unique about it is that it processes meat and dairy products very easily. So it's a method that was invented in the 1980s by a Japanese horticultural professor who was trying to find a method to try and increase the speed with which his plants grew, i.e. as a fertiliser. So he looked at the methods that have been used by Asians for 2,000 years, i.e. Asian natural farming, which uses rice and pulling lactobacillus from the atmosphere down into that rice mixture to create a microbe that's very useful to plants for not only providing a food but also for killing off pests. So he thought, if I could combine a suite of other microbes that also have various benefits, we'd have a perfect way of breaking down food and providing a very efficient fertiliser for plants, hence Bokashi. You'll notice the bins that you use in your house are sealed. These lids are very airtight, so there's actually no smell, and they were designed to go in apartments in Japan, and they are actually used in Tokyo and a couple of other big cities. The contents are taken down to the roadside for a truck collection and taken out to a compost point, and that's currently happening. So that's kind of like Japan's version of a FOGO, I suppose you might say. So you do need two bins, one to be working and then leaving to set and pickle, and the other one you start off again. So what we're going to have a look at now is what it looks like inside a Bokashi bin. And most people get quite a surprise. There is a pickling smell. Now some people don't like that, other people don't mind it. It's not a bad smell, it's more like a smell that you associate with apple cider vinegar. Now if you have a look, the only thing you'll find growing occasionally is white mould, and you can see some there on the cardboard. So I always put a piece of cardboard, this is from a pizza box, over the top, because the difference between this composting and the worm farming and composting compost cones that I've shown you is that this is an anaerobic process. So the microbes that live in here live in extremely low or no oxygen. And unless we keep it like that, we will get bad fungi and so forth coming in, and you get green molds. If you see a green mold like that, dig a hole and bury it, because what happens is all the beneficial microbes in your soil will destroy those other bad microbes. So the white mold is good, and when we lift this cardboard off, you'll see the white mold under the cardboard, and you'll also see it down on some of the food scraps. You'll also notice there is a type of bran over the top of the surface. This is the bran that we use that has been inoculated with the 5 microbes. And what it is doing is pickling your food. It's not actually breaking it down. It pickles it in a state of animation, but while it's doing that, it's extracting amino acids, which are very beneficial for your plants. So if you started digging around, which I'm going to do now, I wouldn't do this normally, but I just wanted to show you that what's in there looks all identical to what I put it in. So there is a bit of paper. We shouldn't use much paper, and there is a lacquer band, which of course is plastic. It shouldn't be in there. There's a piece of watermelon that looks identical to when it went in. Even the colour underneath on that one is exactly the same. So don't feel you're a failure when you open it the first time. You know you're not a failure when you see white mould, because the white mould is an indication that this process is working. And what you need to do is actually bring out your bucket of compost. I keep mine in the garage. I bring out, that's approximately 2 litres. We throw that in, and I have a great little whacker. You can use a potato masher. This is a Jarrow block with a handle on it that my dad made for me. You need to get as much air as you can out. Push that down as hard as you can, because air is your enemy in this case. Where all the other composting, we were trying to put air into the compost bin, This one we're trying to get rid of it. So you give that a good whack, and then what you've got to do is you have got to put about 2 handfuls of this bran across the surface. You can see where you've been. It should cover the surface. So in this case, it's going to be about 1.5 of my handfuls. That just depends on the size of your hand, as long as you've covered the whole surface. I'll just make that airtight again. Now, instead of the bran, you can actually buy this spray. It's the same thing. I don't like it because I can't see where I've just put the spray, so that's why I always buy the bran. You can actually make your own bran, and there is directions for that on Google. It takes a little while, but you know, some people like to get into that. Once you've done that, you put your cardboard back on top, and then you seal it up. Now, I only go to my Bokashi bin once a day. I keep another white bucket near my back door, and I put my food scraps in that, and I only take it once a day, because the least times you can go to it, the better. And you do that until you can come right up to the top and you can't fit any more food in. In this case, this bin is semi-transparent, so I can see where I've got to go. So I've probably got another 2 days of food to go in there. And then I would leave this bin for 2 weeks in the garage while it pickles. And after 2 weeks, I will then go and tip it in the garden, and I'm going to show you that process later. What we are going to do now, though, is extract some of the liquid that's come from this. You won't see the liquid form for about 3 or 4 days. When it comes out, it'll be sort of like an orangey colour. And it's very acidic. And this is taking a little while to come out because I think there might be a block in there I need to clean. Oh, I did take some out yesterday, so we're not going to get much. But what you need to remember, it is quite acidic. So you need to make sure that you dilute this quite well. I've got other things in the bottom of this jug. You take 100 mils of this leachate from the Bokashi bin, and you put it in a 9 or 10 litre watering can and fill that up. So it's quite diluted. That goes on the soil. It's full of beneficial microbes and these amino acids that have been created. So very useful to use in your garden. It's also excellent to clean sinks. And what I mean by that is the drainage. So the bacteria that are in this leachate eat the fat and literally melt the fat, consume it. So that's what unplugs your S-bend in your sink. Now, what I'm going to show you now is how acidic this Bokashi actually is. So I am going to break my own rules and take the lid off again just for demonstrations, and put my pH meter, which measures acidity or alkalinity, into this bin. Unfortunately, I damaged the stem of this and nearly broke it off, but we should see, oh, it's actually broken right off. Hi, back again. Well, that was almost a disaster, but I did have to go and get another pH meter, so just be warned, be very careful with them. The aluminium bends and then breaks very quickly. But nevertheless, I wanted to show you just how acidic this mixture is and why you have to be careful where you put it. Now, the acidity only lasts for about a week, so it's not permanent, but if my cameraman comes in here and hones in on my meter, you will see the bottom mark, the red mark, is down to about 6. Normally this meter sits on 7, so it's heading down. Anything below 6 is very acidic and will affect your plants. So the last stage of managing Bokashi compost is, once you have left it in your bucket or bin for 2 weeks, it needs to then go out to be composted further. Now, you've got a few choices. It can go in a compost bin where the aerobic microbes come in and join forces and help break the food down. It could go in the ground, like I've got here, where I'm preparing some soil for an orange tree to go in later when it cools down and we get some more moisture in the soil. Or thirdly, if you're in a small apartment, I learnt this tip from a participant in a workshop recently. Of course, she didn't have any spare land to put this in, and rather than her take her Bokashi down to the community garden, she bought a big plastic tub and a bag of potting mix, put the potting mix in the container, and then put her bin of Bokashi mix in and another bit of potting mix over the top. And in 2 weeks' time, all of that had disappeared as it was broken down by the microbes in the Bokashi mix and also present in the potting mix when you buy it. So that's the invisible creatures getting to work. So there's a choice. As I said, I'm preparing my hole ready for planting a new navel orange. So we've dug a hole about 30 centimetres deep and made sure that it was damp. I put some water in there because microbes just won't work if the soil is dry. Unfortunately, the area around it is quite dry, so we're going to have to put some water down here. But now that mix goes into the hole with the liquid if it's still got liquid. It's been quite stubborn. There we go. And I'll just take my mesh piece back and we'll wash that bin out before I start it again. But what you now have to do, just like with aerobic compost, is that needs to be covered. And we'll just put some dirt over the top. So remember, this is about 30 centimetres deep. I've got some nice rich carbony material here because we've already had some compost in this hole that I've dug out. That's going to be covered. Now I'm going to wet that down, and in about 2 weeks that will be ready for planting. That acidity that was on 6 will go back to neutral 7 and it will be fine for planting. All that needs now is a good watering. Remember, don't leave it dry. It needs to be kept moist, just like normal compost, because the microbes won't breed, they won't break down the food. So thanks for watching, everybody.